This is one of the most anticipated movies of the year for me. Dhanush, Mamitha Baiju, and Vignesh Raja, the man who directed Peteru. On paper, it had everything it needed, yet I walked out the theatre disappointed. Hi, I'm Aadhav Rajesh, and today we're going to be talking about Kara, directed by Vignesh Raja, starring Dhanush and Mamitha Baiju, with music by Prakash. Kara is set in the early 1990s against the backdrop of the Gulf War, with the fuel crisis emerging in rural Tamil Nadu. A setting with so much potential that the film fails to use, in my opinion. We meet Karasamy, played by Dhanush, a reformed thief who has given up the life for the sake of his wife, Mamitha Baiju. Although he's still chasing one big score to properly settle down. Him and his accomplice, who he thinks will follow his footsteps, get caught in the act. He is although double-crossed and left alone, getting caught by the police. This is when we are introduced to the main antagonist of the film, Suraj Venjaramoodu, a police officer chasing pride and glory, willing to bend every ethic in the book for the sake of his own reputation. Dhanush finds a way to escape the cops and start a new life with his wife. Without proper money, no living conditions or whatsoever, but they do have the comfort of each other. So, to start out a better life, he decides to start a new hotel for himself and his wife, but in order to do so, he would need some money. This is when he decides to go ask his father, played by K.S. Ravikumar, for some money. The problem over here is that Dhanush and K.S. Ravikumar haven't spoken to each other in multiple years. This is because Dhanush once tried to rob his own house and that wound hasn't healed yet. Upon returning back to his hometown, we find out that K.S. Ravikumar has no grudge against him but only pure love and affection. But Dhanush doesn't seem to reciprocate this, and that reason we are not really sure of. It lacks some character development and makes the screenplay a bit odd. Moving back to the story, in his hometown is drowning in debt. The Gulf War has shot up the fuel prices so much that tractors have become worthless. Nearly every farmer has taken out a tractor loan, and their only source of income is their ancestral land. It's on the verge of being seized by the bank, led by a banker played by Jayaram. They can't sell the land because they depend on it, and they can't keep it because the bank owns it. When Dhanush's father passes away, he learns that his final wish is to be buried in his own land. With the loan amount too high and the bank's disrespect almost unbearable, Dhanush decides to team up with his maternal uncle, played by Karunas, to rob the bank and repay them with their own money. They do succeed at first, but when they go hand with an amount of money, they realize it's not enough to close the loan because of the bank's intricate way of proceeding. After the bank robberies, we see the re-entry of Suraj, whose one mission is to hunt down Karasamy, aka Dhanush. From here, the story starts to spiral. Jayaram's character pairs up with Dhanush to stage robberies and create insurance fraud. Then we are put into a small cat and mouse chase, and eventually Karasamy pulls a real Robin Hood moment, clearing all the debts in the village after seeing a struggling old couple. The biggest problem for me is the screenplay in Kara. It keeps skipping the connective tissue between the emotional moments. Conflicts arise and resolve before we even had time to invest in them. The estrangement between Dhanush and his father, arguing the film's emotional engine, is just there at the start, but we're never excavated into it. We are told they're distant, we're shown they're distant, but we never feel why. So when his father dies, the grief lands without weight. That's a screenplay problem, and it cascades through the rest of the film. The pacing of the movie makes it much worse. The editing keeps us moving forward when we need to sit still. Vignesh Raja, who used pacing as a weapon in Peteru, seems to be uncertain here. Like the film couldn't decide whether it wanted to be a tight rural heist thriller or a sprawling family drama. So it tried to be both, and it ended up being neither. Character writing is the next casualty. No performance in this film stays with you after the credits. Not even Dhanush, which is saying something. And honestly, Mamitha Baiju, I don't understand why this role was written for her. She's given nothing to do, no arc, no agency. And after watching Premalu, you know what this actress is capable of. Kara completely wastes her. Then there's this Mutai scene. And we have seen the film, you know exactly what I'm talking about. A line of dialogue introduced earlier, paid off later in a fight. It's the most overused setup in mass cinema. And a film of this caliber to lean on it is completely disappointing. Coming to the music front, Kannamma and Kannamma by Prakash was one of the most reasons I was hyped for this movie. But the score sits awkwardly on the screenplay, songs feel inserted rather than integrated. For a period film with this much atmosphere to play with, the soundscape completely underdelivers. Credit is due when it is, so the interval block is genuinely strong. But honestly, when a film sets you up this bad, anything would have looked amazing. The bar was being lifted for the film, not by it. Overall, Color is a film with a real director's instinct in some places and almost no follow through in the others. The character work is very thin, the screenplay is half baked, and the performances suffer because of this. For me, it's a below average watch, but what hurts more is the idea of this movie was so good. If you have seen Kara, let me know in the comments what you think. Did I miss something? Did the second half work for you the way it didn't for me? Until then, see you next time.